Joining me now, Dr. Ben Carson, author of One Nation and former director of pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Doctor, good to see you tonight. And so President Obama has been very willing in the past to wade into these controversies. And even last night, he spoke at length about this particular controversy, and yet today would like us to believe that he doesn't like to weigh in on these controversies. What's going on here?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say that as a pediatric neurosurgeon, I had many occasions where I had to deal with families who lost a child, and it is tragic. It's perhaps the worst thing that can happen in your life. That said, he has obviously weighed in and made these things somehow seem racial. And I really don't see this as a racial issue with Michael Brown. The police officer would have been in that situation no matter what color the person had been. And perhaps, there are things to be learned. I always say, let's find something good that we can learn from this situation. And there probably are some more techniques that perhaps can be taught to police, not only in Ferguson, but all over the country, that might help to mitigate some of these circumstances. Certainly using cameras, things of that nature are going to be helpful also. But the community needs to understand that it doesn't do you any good to let outside agitators come in and burn your community down. And, they're probably sitting up in a hotel somewhere, drinking champagne and eating steaks. We can't allow ourselves to be so easily manipulated.
But it's not just outside agitators. I mean, definitely there were some. But, we saw a seething rage from, and you can understand where it came from. Michael Brown's stepfather and his mother with the family, I think the father in particular, was calling for peace and calling for this as an opportunity to have all police wear body cams. And then the mother and her, I guess, husband, Michael Brown's stepfather, were doing this. Watch. I understand grief, but how can anybody hear the message through that?
Yeah, well, what's going on with the family, it's very hard to comment on that because emotions really take you out of a logical frame of mind. But the other people, really, I think we're just taking advantage of the situation. There are people who really have nothing good in mind, and to allow people to be stirred up from that and hurt, because the jobless rate was already high in Ferguson. And what they need to think about is the fact that only 12% in the last statewide election of people in Ferguson voted. Use that voting power. Use some of the other things that are available to you. Dr. Martin Luther King had to fight with those who wanted to use violence, and fortunately he won. And he was able to get the points across to the nation as a whole, and tremendous progress was made, and it can be made again. But we have to be logical and rational in the way that we respond to things.
You say that this isn't for you about race. You don't think this is about race, but that is not what we are hearing from the folks in Ferguson who think it is all about race. And Alan West was actually on the channel earlier tonight saying, this would be that this is getting covered, but so many other crimes don't get covered when the race of the shooter and the decedent are reversed. Here he was on Greta. Watch.
What I do find very hypocritical is that President Obama nor Eric Holder has said anything about the 4 black gang members who brutally carjacked and took Captain Kevin Quick, a Virginia Reserve police officer, and murdered him. We did not hear them say anything about the 19-year-old New Jersey teenager, Brendan Devlin, who was gunned down by a black self-proclaimed jihadist. We heard them say nothing about the 2 black teenagers that bludgeoned to death a World War II Okinawa veteran out in Spokane, Washington, nor about the black teenager who shot a young toddler in the face in Brunswick, Georgia. So I think that the country has to really get tired of this cherry picking of these instances of their perceived social justice and their own agenda agenda that they're trying to use for their own elevation. And this really is getting quite despicable. So I think that that's what you're seeing, a political opportunity. And there is no doubt that after what the very meticulous and very well-stated summary that was given by the prosecutor McCullough, that the whole federal government should step out of this and there should be no further probes.
Your thoughts on that, Dr. Carson?
Well, Colonel West is right on target. And the fact of the matter is, today, dozens of young men were killed in the inner city, as they were yesterday and as they will be tomorrow. Why are we not focusing attention on them? Are they not important? I think it's an epidemic that is going on.
But that doesn't help a narrative
that
some feel the need to advance here, which is a belief that white police officers in particular have a racial bias, a prejudice against the black community, and will act to that community's peril based on very little evidence. That's their belief.
Well, that's the belief of people who simply refuse to look at the evidence, to look at the statistics. And I don't know why they won't do that, because they need to be concerned about these people that we're losing. Those are precious lives. Why don't we deal with the real magnitude of what's going on and stop trying to make everything into a political issue?
Dr. Carson, good to see you.